All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're going to unpack one of the most chilling and frankly perplexing criminal case studies in modern history. We are looking at the total transformation of a seemingly ordinary, hardworking guy into one of India's most hidden and prolific monsters. It's a story about greed, cold-blooded calculation, and a series of shocking systemic failures that will genuinely leave you wondering how something like this could happen right under our noses. So get ready, because the scale of what we're about to look at is absolutely staggering.
Just listen to this actual quote. I remember up to 50 murders. After that, I stopped counting. That bone-chilling confession was given by Dr. Devendra Sharma to investigators, and it instantly establishes the horrific scale of his crimes. He wasn't just a criminal, you guys. He was an apex predator who treated human life with so little regard that he literally lost track of his own body count. So let's pull back the curtain and really understand the dark reality of the man they call Dr. Death.
To truly understand this case, we have to go back to where it all started. Act 1. The fall of a doctor.
Born in 1958 in a small village in Uttar Pradesh, Devendra Sharma was actually a really bright, ambitious student. He earned a legitimate degree in Ayurvedic medicine, and by 1984, he opened the Jana Clinic in Bandakui, Rajasthan. For a whole decade, right up until 1994, he was an honest, dedicated doctor treating his patients with care. But then came the turning point. Chasing some quick financial growth, friends convinced him to invest his entire life savings, a massive 11 lakh rupees, into a gas cylinder dealership. Well, it turned out to be a complete scam. A decade of honest, hard work just vanished into thin air. Returning to Aligarh, he wasn't just broke. Actually, scratch that. He was filled with this burning, absolute desire for revenge against his circumstances.
And that desperation birthed a monster, which brings us to Act 2, the deadly kidney racket.
Using his medical background as the perfect cover, Sharma partnered up with an accomplice, Dr. Amit, and they launched a highly lucrative, completely illegal kidney transplant ring. They were charging a staggering 5 to 7 lakh rupees for every single organ. Now, it only took 2 of these illegal surgeries to recover his lost 11 lakhs, but by then, his motivation had completely warped into unchecked greed. He developed this terrifying 3-pronged business model targeting gas cylinder trucks around Aligarh. Once they ambushed a truck, they didn't just steal the cargo, no. First, they sold the stolen gas cylinders through a fake agency. Second, they murdered the driver, surgically removed their kidneys, and sold them on the black market. And third, they sold the stolen truck itself. 3 massive streams of illegal income, all built on the absolute destruction of innocent lives.
Which leads us directly into an even darker phase of his crimes, a place known as the Crocodile Canal.
With all this money rolling in, Sharma faced a major logistical problem. What exactly do you do with the bodies of all these drivers? Well, to deal with it, Sharma mapped a shift to Kasganj, specifically targeting the Hazara Canal, which is an artificial waterway built during the British era. Okay, let's step through his cold-blooded routine. First, he'd travel to Delhi or Gurgaon and book a taxi under a fake name. Second, he'd reroute the driver toward Kasganj. Third, he'd have them stop in some deserted area, pull out a knife, and literally slit the innocent driver's throat. Fourth, he'd drag the body to the Hazara Canal and throw it right in. Why the specific canal? Because it was absolutely infested with thousands of crocodiles, acting as a free disposal service that permanently destroyed the evidence. And finally, he'd drive the stolen taxi to the black market and sell it for around 20 to 25,000 rupees.
The really crucial point here is the sheer, unbelievable volume of these crimes. Before we even talk about the murders, just look at this number. Over 125. That is the estimated number of illegal kidney transplants Dr. Sharma performed between 1995 and his eventual capture. 125 illegal surgeries, operating completely in the shadows.
And then we have this number, 50 plus. This represents the estimated number of innocent truck and taxi drivers he slaughtered. Remember that opening quote? He stopped counting after 50. What started as a desperate attempt to recoup stolen savings had morphed into a complete addiction to taking human life. But honestly, perhaps the most chilling number of all is this: 0. After his crimes finally came to light, police launched these massive search operations in the Hazara Canal to find the remains of his victims. But because of those crocodiles, absolutely 0 bodies were ever recovered. No physical proof, no closure for the families, just a complete and utter erasure of these innocent victims. Which brings us to Act 3, confession and parole escapes.
This is where we see a complete breakdown of the system.
After finally being caught in 2004, confessing to over 50 murders, and getting sentenced to life in Jaipur Central Jail plus a death sentence in Gurgaon, you'd think the story ends there, right? It doesn't. After spending 16 years behind bars, Sharma realized he could manipulate the system. In 2020, he applied for and was somehow granted a 20-day parole under the guise of good behavior. Naturally, the absolute moment he was out, he vanished. He fled to Delhi, changed his appearance, moved in with his second wife, and started working undercover as a property dealer. It took a full 7 months and a critical tip from an informant for the police to track him down and recapture him, throwing him into the high-security Tihar jail.
But what happened next is, frankly, deeply disturbing. Indian law generally stipulates that if an inmate breaks parole once, they are not granted it again. Simple, right? Yet in June of 2023, the unthinkable happened. The courts inexplicably granted this confessed serial killer a 2-month parole. Again, and unsurprisingly, he escaped immediately. This sparked a massive multi-city manhunt across Aligarh, Jaipur, Delhi, Agra, and Prayagraj that lasted for nearly 2 long years. The police were just completely stumped.
And that takes us right up to early 2025, with Act 4, the Holy Man Disguise.
Just as the trail seemed totally cold, police intercepted a phone recharge pointing to the Dausa district of Rajasthan, which is incredibly close to where he operated his Honest Clinic decades ago. What they found there was the ultimate deception. The serial killer had totally transformed into a new persona, Sant Dayagas Maharaj. Taking refuge in the Rameshwar Dam temple, he grew out this long white beard, looked like a frail old man, and just completely embedded himself in the local community. He was giving spiritual sermons, providing free medical treatment to villagers, and had even asked the local panchayat for permission to open an old age home. It was flawless camouflage.
When the police arrived based on the tip, they were incredibly confused. I mean, nobody could believe this revered holy man was Dr. Death. So they initiated a very tense, hushed stakeout. The police actively posed as local villagers. They sat and listened to his temple sermons. They even took his free medical treatments. They maintained continuous, quiet surveillance, trying to figure out if this frail man prescribing them medicine was the exact same guy who fed 50 drivers to crocodiles. So how did they crack it? The breakthrough moment was a masterclass in observation. The police knew that age, weight, and a massive beard can completely alter a person's look. But they also knew that fundamental bone structure, that doesn't lie. They pulled up old photos and videos of Dr. Sharma and closely compared them to the priest, and the match was undeniable. It was the unmistakable eyes and nose of Dr. Death. The shape of his eyes, the bridge of his nose, none of that had changed. So with absolute certainty, the police finally swooped in and arrested him.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really need to pivot from the true crime narrative to look at a deeply concerning, systemic issue, a broken justice system.
The source material gives us some crucial analysis here. How does a legal framework repeatedly unleash a man who openly admitted to 50-plus murders? Well, there are some glaring flaws. Parole was granted in 2023 despite heavily documented escape just a few years prior. The system blindly prioritized a bureaucratic checklist of good behavior over actual public safety. On top of that, there was a severe lack of post-escape consequences, allowing him to manipulate the law without fear. These legal loopholes were actively weaponized by a repeat, highly intelligent offender, proving just how incredibly vulnerable the system really is.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought presented by the source material. Has our justice system's focus on rehabilitation become a threat to humanity? When a man who ruined countless families and mocked the very fabric of the law is given repeated chances to just walk free, we really have to ask ourselves where the balance lies between legal compassion and basic public safety. It's a lingering question that the case of Dr. Death forces us all to confront. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around us.